Now, this is Baruch here at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel, and the last lesson that we were learning here in the Kutim Moran, lesson number 3. It says like this: we come like this, and we're reading it. We're reading the English, and we're reading the English translation, which is really good. So this is why a singer is called a chazan or a chazan. Where does this come from? The word chazon, which is language of prophecy or a vision, which connotes prophecy. The chazan takes his song from the same place that the prophets nurse. Now, this tells me that this is a secret that we really want to understand, and let's try to get into it. Takes his song from the place that the prophets nurse. The connection between prophecy and song is further highlighted, as we know, by the practice of the prophets to listen to music in order to enter a prophetic state. As it is written, a group of prophets, then preceded by a lyre, which is, I think, a kind of harp, a timbrel, a flute, and harp. I guess a lyre might be like a guitar, maybe. It's a stringed instrument, I believe. And they will be prophesying. So you see that this music has a lot to do with it. Now, music is a series of vibrations. It doesn't have to be the kind of music that Chuck Berry did back when I was a kid. And again, Elisha says, now bring me a musician, after which Scripture states, as the musician played, God's hand came upon him. He used those vibrations. So we see then that holy song and prophecy have a common root. Therefore, listening to holy song, especially from a singer who is virtuous and worthy, assists a person in serving God. The Mehanachal, which is the Nachal, Rebbe Nachman is called the Nachal Novea, the flowing brook. So here he has the waters of the brook as a commentary, takes this step further. He says that through holy song, a person can even attain an element of prophecy. Elsewhere, Rebbe Nachman explains that prophecy is an aspect of attaching one's thoughts to the world to come. That is, the prophet would shed his corporeality. He worked on this. He nullifying his physicality, his attachment to this world, and attach himself to God. By doing so, he attained prophecy. And although prophecy has ceased to exist in the world, the source of prophecy, though, which he mentioned before, these opposites, which is Netzach and Hod, still exists. Only now the way to reach it, the way to shed one's attachment to the vanities of this world, is through holy song. Now, if you've ever been in a position where you listen to a chazan who could really sing beautifully, it could take you to many different places, beautiful, beautiful places. When someone listens to the singing of a virtuous person, he can attach himself to God. If the song is joyous, he attaches himself to God in joy. If the song is meditative, he attaches himself to God through yearning. Holy song is thus extremely beneficial to his attaining an element of prophetic vision. When someone listens to the singing of a virtuous person, he can attach himself to God. If the song is joyous, he attaches himself to God in joy. If the song is meditative, he attaches himself to God through yearning. Holy song is thus, we see from this, is extremely beneficial to his attaining an element of prophetic vision. Now this is really talked about to a certain extent also in Rebbe Memran's book, where he talks about really the oneness of coming to that place, controlling the mind in such a way. Now here, Rebbe Nachman is speaking about really a burning in the heart. It's a little different dimension. The Yakara, the Shabbat, which is a sefer I never heard of, adds that this is why Shabbat is so closely related with song. Shabbat is the time of the week when one can best contemplate his relationship with God, and so singing as song is an intrinsic element of the day. Now I'm thinking myself as I'm reading this of how many different kinds of sounds that I could make in song, not like the ones that we normally hear, because they seem to me that they're too used in my own day. I don't have a feeling for them, but I could work on it. Now, here we come up here. But when a singer is wicked, he takes his song from other birds. These are the birds which are called the birds of Klippa, evil forces. Thus, it's written in the Zohar that the birds of the Klippa nurse from the breasts of Malchus, that's kingship. In other words, from Malchus, it's a metaphor. We'll see what he wants to say about that, because he has some arichas on that. We'll see as we go along. That the birds of the Klippa nurse from the breasts of Malchus. That means that Malchus, which is the female aspect, is very much exposed. She represents the house. The house is an inside. Inside the house is concept of Zer Anpin, is the male concept. Outside of the house is danger. And so the female stands between what is in the inside. Let's say that we call this Penimius, which is closer to the source of the Ein Sof Baruch Hu. And the outside, which protects her to a great extent, but is also exposed. So that's the concept of the Klippa nurse from the breasts of Malchus. When midnight comes, a cry goes out. Now, as birds are caught in a trap, so are the children of man ensnared. Now, this is a little piece from Ecclesiastic, and so therefore we have to really look back here and see exactly what we are talking about. So, the Pirush, and we'll go through this as much as we have time, and there's a lot here. Number 9 is the singer is wicked. Rebbe Nachman now addresses the converse to her holy song. Listening to profane song or even holy song, but from an unworthy person. So he's saying that the song, the person, the singer, you have to understand this Kabbalistically. I understand this Kabbalistically, is the singer really represents that concept of voice. The voice is really coming from a channel, can be coming from the channel of the Zer Anpin of Kedusha. And when that person is fit, and really we're going to see in many other places, it has to do with fit in terms of the person's sex life. What kind of Kedusha is involved in it. So that person who has that kind of Kedusha, when that person sings, it has a very special power to be able to become a channel from what is way up high. So he says, listening to profane song or even holy song, but for an unworthy person. The source of a virtuous person's song is of a spiritual nature and not readily observable. So the source of a virtuous person's song is of a spiritual nature. In other words, it's ruchni. It's not physical, so you can't see it. It's hard to pick up and not readily observable. The same can be said of a wicked person. His song is also rooted in hidden sources. In other words, it's coming from a deep place within him as well. But that deep place is really attached to false ideas. King Solomon referred to this as the Lord made one to contrast the other. So that's what I said recently. So he says that Hashem is bara osam, zeh keneged zeh bara osam. He made opposites. So if you have Kedusha, then you have to have the other as well. If you have a Zer Anpin of Kedusha, you have a Zer Anpin of Klippa. However, in the wicked person's case, his inspiration comes from the holy and the impure. As we have seen in other places, if we listen to the Zohar, we understand how that impurity can be developed and used. The Mehanachal defines a wicked singer as one whose singing is motivated by personal gain for wealth, honor, and fame. That's a way to understand this, because that's also part of this idea. So he said, so let's go on and see what we can see a little bit more. So the singer is wicked. Okay, here we are down here. Songbirds of the Klippa. So he says, just as there are two holy birds, which are called Netzach and Hod, which are the portents of prophecy, So too there's an opposing pair of birds whose source is the evil forces of the other side, the klipos. So he says these two birds are the sources of prophecy for the other side, as well as the source of song for the wicked. So don't think that, for example, that there is not a power in witchcraft, because witchcraft, done well, puts all the sources of evil together in a really filthy mix, but that mix has ability to be able to hurt or to be able to change things in a bad way. In essence, these two birds of the klipa are the source of all forms of false prophecy. In the modern-day context, they are the source from which false leaders derive their ill-conceived, ill-intentioned teachings and lead people astray. So let's say Karl Marx, then leading to Stalin and Lenin and all those things in Russia. Same thing you had with Hitler. Now you have things going on in the United States that you really don't want to talk about. For only those with the pure dot, the faculty by which man filters and incorporates the light, that is the awareness and knowledge provided by the mochim of Kedusha, the holy mochim, can teach and guide others in the proper way. Now, this reminds me that since I'm a Baal Tshuva and I understand that, I realize people say, well, how did you get involved in Orthodox Judaism? I read the 5 books of Moses, and Moses became my teacher. And I realized that he was the juice within Moshe that really fed me was what they call these mochim. As Rebbe Nachman explained, the voice has the power to arise one's mind to great levels. But making proper use of this expanded mentality requires das. Lacking this, the song of a wicked person is profane and thus easily misleads those who listen to it. Reb Nosson therefore states that it is the lack of interaction between voice and speech, meaning the yichud, that's the oneness of coming, the oneness that the voice and the speech are together. But it's the lack of this interaction, the separation of male from female. It's like in the society we live in now, everything's about sex. But sex is not about male and female. It's about different kinds of, it's just a physical reaction. It has to be where the two of them are actually, their minds, their souls are coming together. That can only happen in Kedusha. And that happens around family and many other things. Lacking this, the song of a wicked person is profane and thus easily misleads those who listen to it. Reb Nosson therefore states that it is the lack of interaction between voice and speech, the lack of a yichud, that allows evil, which is the concept of separation, to develop to the point where wicked singers are able to draw people away from God. This is Baruch Fleischman. That's what we've been learning here at the Tikkun Elevator Kolo.